winter is shaping up to be a war, a battle between competing atmospheric forces that's going to divide America right down the middle. And I'm going to tell you exactly what that means for your backyard. We have crunched the numbers. We've analyzed 7 analog winters going back to 1989. We've looked at every forecast model, from the American ones to the Canadians to the Europeans, and they're all telling the same story. Some of you are about to experience the snowiest winter in years. I'm talking 120 to 150% of normal, and others could be in a snow drought. We're talking about 50 to 70% of normal snowfall rates. This is not just another winter forecast. This is about a weak La Nina that's barely hanging on, a polar vortex that's showing signs of instability, and a Pacific Decadal Oscillation that's in its strongest negative phase in years. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what all that means and what it means for your backyard as far as how much snow you're going to get. And it's all backed by science and historical precedent. But before we start talking about the future, let's talk about the past. What do you normally see in your backyard? Using 30 years of data from 1991 to 2020, here's how much on average you typically get each year. Those in the gray areas, like in Jacksonville, Houston, Phoenix, you guys usually see no snow at all. But in the white zones around Charlotte, Nashville, and Oklahoma City, you guys typically get about 1 to 5 inches. And as we go into the blue areas, we're talking about Louisville, Cincinnati, Wichita, Pikeville, Kentucky, we're anywhere from 5 to 25 inches in these blue areas here. And as we go into dark blue, this is New York, Detroit, Chicago, we're talking about 25 to 50 inches. And look at these pink zones. Denver, Pittsburgh, Salt Lake City, we're talking about 50 to 75 inches, and the real snow lovers are in the hot pink regions, like Buffalo. This is where we see 75 to 100 inches of snow on average. And then there's these crazy areas in the dark pink where we can see over 100 inches a year. Now, keep these numbers in mind, because what you see on this map here is not what I expect you're going to see this year. This winter, the winter of 2025 through 2026, is going to be anything but typical. As I explained in my last winter forecast video, we are dealing with what I like to call a ghostly La Nina this year. It barely made the threshold, sitting at just about 0.3 degrees below normal temperatures in the Pacific. But here's what La Nina does even when it's weak. It pushes the jet stream north. That means that storm systems take a more northerly route across the country instead of cutting through the south. You get a cold in the north and warm in the south pattern. It's pretty simple. For snow, that means quick hitting Alberta clippers out of Canada, dropping 2 to 4 inches of snow at a time across the Great Lakes, the northern plains, over into the interior northeast. And 2 to 4 inches of snow at a time is more of a nuisance than anything, but as far as a yearly total goes, that's going to be a lot if we're getting one of these every 5 to 7 days. And this is textbook La Nina, okay? Frequent, smaller storms moving across the northern United States. Now, here's the secret weapon that's got me so confident in this forecast. It's called the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, or the PDO. Think of this as La Nina's big brother. La Nina affects just a small box of water in the equatorial Pacific area, and it changes from year to year. Now, the PDO affects the entire North Pacific Ocean, and it shifts over the course of 20 to 30 years. And right now, we are in the strongest negative PDO phase that we've seen in years. And a negative PDO pretty much does the exact same thing as La Nina: cold in the north, warm in the south, and a more northern storm track. It's kind of like having two voices singing the same song. It increases the signal, even if one of those voices is a little bit quieter in the background. The PDO is going to reinforce everything that La Nina was already trying to do. And that's why, even with a weak La Nina, I'm betting on that more northerly storm track this year. But how do I know that this pattern actually delivers the snow that I'm talking about? Well, it's because we've seen this before multiple times. This pattern, the pattern that we're about to experience during the winter of 2025 through 2026, has happened before, or at least it's pretty much happened before, 7 times over the past 35 years. We have identified 7 winters with nearly identical setups to what we're seeing right now, and the pattern is crystal clear. Our top analog or similar winter is going to be 2013 to 2014. It had the same weak La Nina, same negative PDO, and the same warm Atlantic waters, which is what we're dealing with right now. And that winter, Chicago got 82 inches of snow, Detroit got 94 inches, and Boston got 58 inches, all well above normal. And then there's the winter winter of 1995 to 96. That winter gave us the blizzard of 96, which buried the East Coast. Another analog is 2017 to 2018, which brought us a bunch of nor'easters on the East Coast as well. And another strong analog is the winter of 1989 to 1990, and that's where we had that pre-Christmas Arctic outbreak that set records from Montana all the way down to Florida. When we composite all of these similar winters in the past together, the signal is undeniable. Northern states average 115 to 130% of normal snowfall. Southern states get anywhere from 50 to 70% of normal. And the Great Lakes region exceed normal 6 out of 7 times. But here is a key insight. Every single analog year had at least one memorable storm or cold outbreak, the kind that we write down and we remember for years to come. And that's not a coincidence, that's a pattern. And this year is at least an 85% match to those years where we had those historic cold outbreaks or memorable storms. So history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And you can see where I'm going with this. I do think we're going to have at least one memorable thing this year, whether it's just a cold outbreak or a Big Daddy snowstorm, as I've referred to before. But one thing that we've got to remember is that even with all this historical data backing us up, there's one thing that could completely override this forecast. There's a wild card sitting 60,000 feet above the North Pole that could shake things up, and that's the polar vortex. And the latest data suggests that it might be unstable this winter. Here's what's happening. We've got what's called an easterly QBO. It's another long word, quasi-biennial oscillation. Just think of it this way. These are winds in the upper atmosphere that are blowing the wrong direction. And when that happens, it puts stress on the polar vortex. Combine that with our weak La Nina and our very negative PDO, and historically, this leads to a 60 to 75% chance of the polar vortex weakening or splitting apart. And when that happens, it can send extremely cold air down into the United States. In fact, one of our analog winters, December of 1989, for example, this exact thing happened, and we saw a massive historic cold outbreak. And the same thing also happened in 2017 and 18, and it combined with some moisture that led to a pretty prolific snowstorm outbreak. But here's the thing that we've got to remember. While I am confident that we're going to see a couple of these polar vortex disruptions this winter, and we are going to see these major Arctic outbreaks, at least 1 to 2 of them, polar vortex disruptions and major Arctic outbreaks don't always come with snow. If those Arctic air masses come down dry without any storm systems to tap into moisture, all you get is cold. No snow, just freeze your face off cold. Now, a polar vortex disruption with a bunch of cold air coming down into the United States could lead to a historic blizzard, or it could just bring record cold and nothing else. It's one more variable in the forecast, one more thing that could tip the scales, and one more wild card that just makes that battle zone area in the mid-latitudes of the United States so hard to figure out this year. But here's the thing, I don't think it's going to change the overall pattern. The North is going to win and the South is going to lose in terms of snow totals. So with that being said, you've been patient, you've heard the science, you've heard the history. Now let's cut to the chase. Here's exactly how much snow you're going to see in your backyard this year. If you live north of Interstate 80, we're talking Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, upstate New York, if you're a snow lover, you win. Congratulations. And you might be thinking, well, duh, Ryan, of course, it's going to snow more in New York than it does in Florida. I'm not talking about just like overall snow totals. I'm talking about averages. These guys are going to see much more snow than what they normally see, which is already a lot. We're talking about 20 to 40% above average snow up here. Montana, 40% above normal. Book those Big Sky and Jackson Hole trips for January. Trust me on that one. We've got 400 to 500 inches of snow coming your way this year. And in Minneapolis, I think that we could easily see 65 to 75 inches of snow. Chicago, 50 to 60. These are all above average. And y'all's pattern is really going to lock in during January. That's when we're going to see those Alberta Clippers every 5 to 7 days dropping 2 to 5 inches of snow at a time. But here's where things get crazy. The Great Lakes Lake Effect Snow Machine is about to go absolutely bonkers. Water temperatures are running 2 to 4 degrees above normal. So Buffalo, I'm not exaggerating when I say that you could see over 100 inches of snow this year. And Michigan's Upper Peninsula, try 250 to 350 inches. That's not measuring in feet, that's measuring in yards. And December through January, when these Arctic systems scream across the warm lakes, you're going to get hit with thunder snow events that could drop 2 to 3 feet of snow at a time. Now, if you're out west in the Cascades or the Rockies, this is the year that you've been waiting for. Places like Mount Baker could see 600 inches of snow, Crystal Mountain, Stevens Pass, these are all places that are going to see more snow than average this year, and in some places it could be up to 40% more. But California, even up in the Sierras, I've got bad news. After 2 monster years, Mother Nature is taking a break. I think Tahoe's looking at 300 to 350 inches of snow instead of your normal 400 plus. And in the Southern Sierra, we're talking about maybe only 50% of your average snowfall this year. There is a wild card though. Late February could bring enhanced Pacific moisture, and the only reason I'm saying that is because half of our analog winters had this happen, specifically in February in Southern California. And speaking of wild cards, let's talk about the East Coast. Boston, I'm thinking we could see about 45 to 50 inches of snow over here. That's about normal, maybe slightly above. New York City could be 15 inches, could be 35. It all depends on storm tracks. Once again, it's got to do with those polar outbreaks combining with moisture at the right time. If that happens, we're talking 35. If it doesn't, we're talking 15. Now, as we go into the Ohio Valley, we're talking about Cincinnati, Louisville, Indianapolis. Here's your problem. I'm going to say that we're not going to get above average snowfall here. In fact, we might be a little bit below average. But a lot of the analog years do have ice storms happening in this area. So we've got about a 35% above normal chance of having some sort of prolific ice storm this year. Doesn't mean that's going to happen. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. You know what I'm saying? So just be prepared for that. And of course, this is another one of those places where if we get a perfectly timed Arctic outbreak with some Gulf moisture, we could see a big daddy snowstorm down here. But for the most part, I wouldn't bank on it. Now, as we go south into Atlanta, Charlotte, and Nashville, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You might not even want to call this winter, all right? This is just going to be a prolonged fall, early spring kind of deal for y'all. It's not going to snow. If it does, then we got an incredibly rare combination of one of those Gulf systems with the Arctic outbreak coming from the north. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. Atlanta might see an inch of snow if you're lucky. Charlotte and Nashville, maybe 2 to 4 inches. Houston, Miami, Phoenix, nothing. If we were to see something unusual happening down here, it would be in January or February. So keep your eyes peeled to the forecast during those months. But unfortunately, it's probably going to be a couple instances of severe weather that we have to talk about down here more than snow. The bottom line is that the north winds in the south loses this year, which is not always the case. I know it sounds kind of like, duh. But last year, the south won. I mean, we had that rare Gulf blizzard literally on the beaches of Florida. That's not going to happen this year. But there are going to be a lot of places and millions of people that are going to be dealing with one of the snowiest winters of their lives this year. And if you're one of those people, and even if you're not, maybe you're going to be one of those people next year, here's what you need to do. Get yourself a Yolometer. This year, we are rolling out the brand new Yolometer 3.0. And guys, this is a serious upgrade. We have made it out of a sturdier material, so it's built to last through multiple winters. And it looks even cooler than before. Big, bright, and beautiful. Perfect for those snow measurement photos that you're going to share all over social media whenever the snow comes. But here's the best part. Flip your Yolometer over and you're going to see a QR code. Scan that bad boy and it's going to take you right to where you can share your snow picture with me. No hunting around for links during a blizzard or trying to send it through Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Just measure it, scan it, share it. And speaking of sharing your measurements, during every snow stream this winter, we are going to pick a random snow measurement and we're going to send you $1,000. We've done this every winter. It's really fun. Some winters we don't do it very often because it hasn't been snowing much, but this year is not going to be like that. $1,000. That's right, just for measuring snow. You could be standing in your driveway with a Yolometer, take a photo, and boom, you're in the running. But this is not just about winning money. These Yolometers help us fund our operations here. They help us hire more storm chasers for tornado season and for hurricane season. And they help us bring you the best live severe weather coverage that we could possibly create. So head on over to shopryanhall.com right now and grab yourself a Yolometer 3.0. Now, I've got to be honest with you, it might take a couple weeks for them to ship. We sell a lot of them in a very short period of time. We make them locally. It's a very small operation here, but the goal is to get your Yolometer to you before the next Big Daddy snowstorm. And I think that we can do that. Get yours now over at shopryanhall.com. The link's at the top of the description. Make sure you share those photos with me, and let's see how right or how wrong I actually was about this winter as we go into the coming months. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.